Right, and we're off. So this is going to be game number 30 from Invincible, and it's a third game against Sekiyama, the amateur samurai. And it's actually also the third game from the Nijubango. So I think they jump around later, but so far they've just showed the first three games in a row. And I think the streaming and the video is going to be better now, at least when I was testing it. I don't know if how many of you guys have looked at the videos in the past, but the actual picture quality is really good, but there's a lot of lag. So like if I click a sequence really quickly, a lot of the frames get dropped, and I don't think that's going to be a problem anymore. But I'm going to probably have to fine tune it um, for quality later. But I think it should be much better now. All right, so let's get into the game. Sekiyama, of course, plays the Mokuhazushi 3-5. That's his favorite. And Shusaku actually does the same thing. This is kind of an interesting position here because both of them are facing each other on the top. And Sekiyama plays yet another 3-5 in the lower left. Um, the pro pointed out that in this sort of configuration on the top, it's actually completely possible to just play here. And the reason for that is when these two stones are on the same spot, whoever approaches first gets a really favorable result, right? So when black plays here, he's got like a nice pincer coming up, and it's the white stone that's under pressure. And the same thing, right? If white plays at R16, it's the same thing for him. So black could actually do that if he wanted, but instead he plays an open corner. And so this isn't unusual for Sekiyama to play 2 3-5s, but it is quite unusual for Shusaku to play two. Normally he would just play one, and then the other he would do Komoku. But so in this game we get 3-5s all around in every single corner, which is pretty interesting. And yeah, we get another interesting move here. Sekiyama goes for a really unconventional um, enclosure. Wow, I'm getting some pretty good lag, but hopefully it's manageable. So he goes with this enclosure, right? Which it looks normal, but the thing is it's actually one line higher than you would normally have with the Komoku and the Shamari. So that means it may look big, but that means it's easier to invade, right? Like um, white could come in with A, could even possibly try coming in with B. So the pro said something like, it's like interesting, and he's building a high position, but he said it's not a good model for imitation. So he recommended against, using this as like a good, you know, model for learning. But still, it's pretty interesting. Um, Also, it's worth pointing out that still this move would be great, but I could just do this and that would be completely fine. But instead we get this, and now there's two choices for white, either the top left enclosure or this approach. He goes with this one, and that gives black. Uh, oh, actually, I'm completely forgetting about this one. So I should have made that into a question. How do we determine that A is more useful than B here? Any idea? Position of the stones. You could say that for like any Go problem ever, Jay. Nice one. Nice try. Q5 doesn't face P3. d3. So the main thing is that this approach uses black's high position that we were talking about earlier, because now it's ready for like a pincer, right? So black has a nice position on the top. This move here, locally it's very good, but it's not. It doesn't use this high position in the same way, right? I'm starting to wonder if this lag is not coincidence with the streaming, so I might have to turn the quality down next time. Oh, I see, Q15. Yeah, okay. So we get this, and Shusaku goes for the Taisha here. Just not a bad idea, especially against a weaker opponent, right? But this is not at all unfavorable for black, right? Because the Taisha is going to be a fight. So let's just click a couple moves here. Black needs to come out and split white. White's going to wedge in to make sure that black can't come out too easily. Black's got to try to stay connected. So when we get into this fight here, you want to look at the adjacent areas, right? So in the top right, black has help. And in the bottom left, black has help. So really this fighting should be just fine for black. There's no problem with it at all. What happens if you play 4 Taisha? There's probably all sorts of nasty like ladder stuff. That'd be pretty crazy actually. I wouldn't recommend it. One is enough to keep me on the edge of my seat. Sekiyama actually doesn't go for the fight here though. He goes for the easy variation. He cuts here and sacrifices a stone, which is also Joseki, but he could totally do this if he wants to, right? There's no problem. He can get into, and of course there's other variations because it's Taisha, but something like this would be completely fine for black because he's got helper stones everywhere. But perhaps he wanted to keep a little simpler. White captures the stone. Black plays Atari. Now to connect at E16 would be a very, very sad move, right? That's not the type of shape we can really make if we want to improve. So white Atari's back. Black captures, and then white takes the 3-3 point. Black connects. White connects. And this is actually, it's all Joseki. Now normally here, black extends to A, but in this case, he extended to here instead. So a little further, and the pro actually liked this. He thought this was smart, and he gave a reason for that, which I'll explain in a second. For now, white just takes the last corner, makes this enclosure. The reason he felt that this move showed some insight is that if black does the normal one, this is a 5-space extension, which we've talked about is a really nice extension. But the thing is, when white answers here, black sort of needs to respond, maybe around here. And that's just fine for the left side, right? It's a good position. But black's idea is that in this case, if white does this, the gap's a little less, and he's going to ignore and do something else because maybe he thinks this is bigger, for example. So that's the idea over there. Just one line difference on the left, but it's kind of interesting. Um, so here, all the corners are pretty much done for now. Black's got this one though, which is pretty easy to invade, and the right side's very wide. So he chooses a move on the right side to bring the fourth line stone down to the third line, right? All fourth line stones like to come down and close their skirts on the third line. Um, However, Kubomatsu Katsukiyo didn't think this was quite the best move. He would have played here because he thinks that gives uh, Black a good follow-up move at A. Personally, I would think something more solid like B, but he had some thoughts here. He thought perhaps Black is worried about this invasion. But what he said is that, yeah, White can do this, but the invasion isn't very powerful. So it's not that big of a deal. And his other point was that if White invades from the inside, now this A stone's going to be better because when Black blocks around here to attack the A stone, now the triangle stone's at a better distance, right? Whereas if it's on the square, it's a little narrow. And his final point here was that even though Black played tighter, White can still invade at A. So he didn't really see the point of this one, although it's still a fine move. Okay, so let's see, where next? This next move was actually criticized a bit. Uh, Locally, of course, this is a perfect move for White to finish the position on the top. But the problem with it is that Black actually presses here now, and it makes a really, really easy position and an easy game for Black. So this is a kind of the start of White having some difficulties. So he suggested that this is more important than the top. This is kind of urgent. White needs to defend here so that put some pressure on Black's weakness on the left. Also, just reduce the potential of the left and raise the potential of the bottom. So now this gets a little difficult for White. Let's take a look. Have to help our stone. And now, normally Black just plays at A, but there is a choice at B also. And it's more rare, but in this case, Sekiyama actually chooses B. So first, let's just see what happens here. White extends, which is a little unusual. Black connects, and White comes out. So this is the result they got. Now let's compare with some other things. Normally, actually, even I looked in the Joseki dictionary, and it said that this move here, F3, is a mistake. Normally, White wedges in to create weaknesses in Black. There's different ways, but Black generally will connect on the outside. White plays a forcing move and then comes out. And so the pro felt like the reason Shusaku didn't play this way is that this is too much thickness for Black. So it's going to be harder for White to do something like in the A area. And it might not look like a big difference between this and that. And actually, to me, it doesn't look like a big difference either. But actually, later, Shusaku is able to use Aji in this position. So we'll see that. The other thing to compare is just this regular diagram, right? Now, he said that there's a good reason for Black not to play this way. I kind of struggled to see it, but let's take a look anyway. He felt like if Black continues to push, then that will give white too much territory. That's where I kind of disagree. One thing I've learned pretty well from Mr. Yang is that, oh, getting some lag again. To wait for it to catch up. When you've got low stones like this, it's really not something to be afraid of. Oh, did audio die? Is it back? Oh man. Hopefully this doesn't create too many problems with the video. Yeah, I'm gonna have to do some more testing later, I guess. Part of it, what it could be is that, like I said, the resolution is a lot higher now. Like my old system was 1080p, and this one is like, what is it, like 2560 by 1440, and I think that takes more processing power to encode, but I don't think that's the issue. I think it might be my upload speed might not be up to snuff. So that could be kind of what's creating lag. So I'll have to tinker with that. Hopefully I can get it better in the future. I'm moving up in the world, yeah. Okay, so I wouldn't think that this is too much for white. So for example, if black just keeps pushing, there's different joseki here, but we can just take a look at some examples. Black can cut, white needs to answer. Now here's where it gets a little interesting. This is generally a forcing move, and white would need to play here, right, to save his 2 stones. Then black can force and extend, and probably white needs to play something like this. I think this is completely manageable for black, so I don't see it as being too much territory for white. That's kind of where, I mean, it's funny to argue with an 8-dan professional, but I just couldn't see it. Another thing though is in this position, black probably can't get this forcing move because white will probably Atari here. Arguing with a book, yeah. Yeah, it's actually a lot easier to argue with the real person because then he could just show me why, right? It's more difficult when it's just words on a page. Okay, so anyway, black goes this way and white plays kind of passive, but to keep more Aji in the position. That was my understanding. Um, so now how do we grow the black position on the left? Oh, J5. That's a good move for later. But right now, probably not Sente, right? So this is the perfect spot to grow the left-hand side. This is a good move for later because it aims at like A or B. But in this case, it's not real Sente, right? So white will probably jump here because this is a really important area. Now, of course, if white just answers you, then that's quite a good exchange for black. Okay, so it ends up like this. Black jumps. This is the correct shape here. This would be a little slow, heavy feeling to it. Black wants to go a bit faster. White Ataris. Double Hane bad. Yeah, I wondered about that. So if you double Hane, what's white gonna do? So there's a couple of choices, right? Let's say he just extends. Well, in that case, black might connect, or maybe he'll continue pushing, right? Hane again. That's possible as well. Something like this. Yeah, that's the one I'm thinking about. It might be possible to do this, and this is the one I would worry about. I think this might be the reason that black doesn't double Hane, because these stones aren't that easy to capture, right? The A stone has Liberty weaknesses, but there's no way you're actually gonna capture it. Yeah, it does seem fun, but yeah, I don't know. It seems like a gamble. Isn't H13 really just a counter Hane and not a double Hane? Well, this is a Hane, right? G14 is a Hane, and then it's Hane again. So yeah, I'd say that's double Hane. In any case, he jumps, and what the pro said is that this Atari is proper timing because white will answer here, or black will answer here. This is kind of subtle, but his point was that if white just extends like this, later on when white pushes here, black is not necessarily going to play A. He might just back off because now this triangle stone has like almost no value, right? You have some feeling about that? It's actually not that easy to get this feeling, or maybe it is, but when white already has this connection stone at the square one, it really diminishes the importance or the value of the triangle stone. So at this point, black isn't really going to care. That's why he would back off. Um, but when it's like this, there's some potential there, right? This is still Atari. That's why black's not going to back off. Okay. So the left side looks pretty nice, right? And white goes for the reduction move now. Actually, where would you guys play to reduce? Or maybe I shouldn't even give away. Maybe someone would have invaded really deeply. H4. Okay, so just push up. H6. H8. G8. Cool. Good suggestions. Okay, so um, one of you got it right. Who do you think it would be that got it correct? The guy with the highest rank next to his name. Funny Bunny got it. Um, at least this is where Shusaku played. He reduced from here. So good job, Funny Bunny. And black just took his points for now. So let's look at the other choices. A, it is in a sense a reduction, but it's more of like a kind of like a share type of move, right? Like I'll get more on the bottom. Um, but it gives the left, right? So it's kind of like a trade share. Thanks, Jay. So white has more potential on the bottom now, right? But it's kind of giving the points away. Um, so A can be possible, but what I would say is that C is more concerned with black's area, reducing as much as you can, and A is a bit of a different idea. Can't black make double Hane? Um, at this point, maybe after G3. Well, there's no need to play G3 just yet. But yeah, you might be able to now because these stones are here. Actually, let's go back a little bit. I forgot to mention that so what the pro said here is that this result he didn't think was so good for black either, because now this is really wide for white. So his point was kind of if black continues pushing, he doesn't like it, and if he doesn't do something there, he also doesn't like it. And again, I don't necessarily agree that continuing to push is bad. But in any case, I think you might be right, Jay, that at this point, when you already have these stones here, you might be able to double Hane. Um, but the thing I would stress is that it's just a different sort of idea. Now with B, I get the idea, but I think it's a little too close because you know this stone is Sente, right? So, right, like white has to respond. So it just seems a little close to me. Whereas with Shusaku's move, let's say black does the same thing. This stone has some distance, right? It's not too close to the wall. Yeah, and then with G8, um, black will cap, and A is going to be Sente, right? So that means like when white is trying to come out, he's going to have two problems. So are you going to let black pierce through at A and completely destroy that group? Or are you going to let black seal this in? So it's a little deep. So C is kind of the perfect move. And if you look at the sector line, right, people like to call it, is between A and B. So if you imagine some sort of line between those stones, you want to be on that line. Those don't exist, yeah. Okay, so it played like this. And notice at this distance, black's not going to go crazy and try to like attack from the outside because it's too much of a gamble. So he just takes the practical move for now. And then white comes back to Hane. Black pushes one more time. And the pro pointed out that this is to create an extra cut. So he pushes once before fixing. If he fixes immediately, then white's position will be more powerful, right? It's just a solid shape on the outside. So he pushed because white probably feels like this is too slack at this moment, right? Because he has the A stone. So he needs to be applying liberty pressure to black's cuts. So he has to Hane. And now there's extra cut in white's position. So this is pretty interesting. All right. Let me make sure we're in the right spot here. Okay, good. So white uses kind of an interesting tactic here. What is F8? What is F8? It's a big territory move, and it's also an attacking move. So this is something I kind of learned from Mr. Yang as well, because it was hard for me to play a move like this. Um, and I wish I had the actual game that I could show you. Essentially, what he told me is that if you can't attack seriously, you have to play the practical move like this. So you already gained points, right? And this stone is still weak, so you can still attack later. Also, if you think about like the A stone, to attack is to take away a running direction, right? That's Shy Ghost, right? That's what he says. That's what attacking means. You take away a running direction. Now, which direction does white want to run in? Now, the safest is C, but I think he's actually going to run in the A direction, right? Because he's trying to reduce. Yeah, definitely not B or D. And if he was too worried to run in the A direction, that would mean that H8 was already wrong, right? Like if he's so scared that he needs to run to C already, that means he's already a stone behind. So that would mean that H8 was too deep. That would mean he should have done something like this, right? So white is kind of prepared to run inside. And if black can't effectively attack from the outside, this is just the practical move. Okay, so here white wants to alleviate some fighting points, and he comes up with an interesting way of doing that. He actually cuts black himself. Um, and he's not expecting to kill anything in here. Nothing's really going to happen, but let's see what his idea is. Black has to answer, and then he Hanes here. So now, the purpose of these two stones, they're a sacrifice that puts some pressure on these black stones. So as long as there's pressure on those black stones, it's harder for black to cut. Oh, the other thing that's really important, maybe even more important, is that A is Sente now, right? Because there's the two triangle stones. A is going to be Atari. Black would have to connect at B. That means that H15 isn't a real cut. You guys understand that? So that means that White's position is actually a lot stronger than it looks because one of the cuts isn't real. So that's sort of what White's trying to do here. Now we actually get Ruckus's move, which makes sense at this point, right? If White can somehow link these guys up, not only will it help him for, safe health, the health of his stones, but also it would make a nice position on the bottom. So Black plays here, starting to split the stones off. White doesn't want A to be a waste, so he's got to make a defense here. That's what he does. So for now, the left side is kind of handled. Actually, let me show you what White is sort of aiming at over here, because I forgot to do that. So I'm going to pass for Black. Just to give you an idea of the Aji here, there's a throw-in, right? And there's an Atari. And if Black is going to just let these two stones die, then clearly there's no cuts. So if we assume Black connects, then White has this kind of move. And clearly this isn't going to kill Black here, but you can see that there's the makings of a really good squeeze in here, right? It's going to be painful. So as long as there's that kind of Aji, it's not that easy for Black to cut in that area. Okay. So this next part is interesting too. I think it's something that I can really learn about. Remember how this corner is very open? If White plays something like A or B, it's most likely going to live. So the left side for now is pretty much finished, and what Black is interested in is getting rid of the Aji in his top right corner. And so how does he go about doing that? He touches a strong stone. This is a pretty good idea, right? Because how do we know that stone is strong? Well, look at all the support it has, right? There's no way you will ever be this is appropriate touching. Funny. There's no way you're ever going to be invading in between there. So what Black is thinking is he's going to get some extra strength, and hopefully it will get rid of the Aji in the corner. He could extend one space, but it doesn't really put much pressure on White, right? So he goes for this, which is really interesting. White Hanes. And Black plays a really aggressive move here. He actually Hanes back on the second line. The normal move would be to just extend here. And I think with this extension, Black has gotten rid of a lot of the Aji around A. But apparently he didn't want White to be able to play this descent, which is really nice for White's points and also gives the monkey jump later, right? So he actually Hanes back. And this gets to be just a really interesting variation. white actually attaches in the corner now, because he's trying to get something done here. The way the pro put it was that white has to do something. That's what he said. And the reason for that is if, let's say, white just connects and now black comes back, this is an improvement over the other diagram, right? This exchange is already an improvement for black because there's no monkey jump, and also white got pushed in a little more. So, even if white captures at C later, it's going to be smaller than the monkey jump, and also black might get the chance to connect at C, and then that will give him the Hane at D, which is a Sente endgame. So that's a big improvement. So white doesn't want that. So yeah, he tests in the corner, but black actually plays really well here. He ignores, right? Because, you know, from his perspective, he's saying, well, you ignored me, right? Yeah, K17. So he plays the Atari, and then he extends back. So he's leaving this stone alone, and white's going to get to follow up there, but that's okay because black already just gained a lot on the top, right? Let's see. So playing here would be falling into white's trap. Let's see what might happen here. There's some magic could happen here. White can get a free forcing move. And then black's just going to get pushed around really bad here, right? So like if he comes out, white could just play here, or he might Atari again. I'm not completely sure, but that's not good for black. Black can play more solid than that, right? Like with P16. Like connect here, P16. Oh, like here. Yeah, you can do that. There's more Aji to live in the corner though, because there's an extra liberty here, right? So like for instance, the Hane has more power now. So I'm not sure if white will try to live immediately, or maybe he'll follow up in the B area and just leave that Aji for later. And even if black has to spend an extra move there, that's kind of a gain. Okay, so this continues to be interesting actually. There's some important reading going on here I would probably miss, but white makes a sacrifice here, which looks weird, but it's actually really important. Black, of course, is gonna grab that stone. So let's see why he does that. White wants to Hane here. It's the natural move because black never helped his A stone. But in this case, black can just cut, and it's difficult for white. Now, at first, it looks like this is going to work out for white. Black cuts. And it seems like this just works because it looks like black needs to capture and then white can capture, right? But black has a good move. Do you guys see where it is? Good, Vincent. Yeah. Um, 019 might be similar. So here, white doesn't have time to descend because then black will just capture. So white has to capture, black can Atari. And there is the Aji stone at A, but it's meaningless unless white captures or saves these two stones first. But in that case, black can just play here. Um, and it seems like white scooped out the top, right? So that's not good. Yeah, there is some liberty fear on the top there for black, but he's actually okay. So this exchange is really important because now when white hanes, black just has to play solid here. And let's see why that is. So now it's a little different, right? Because this move is guaranteed sente. And now there's, A, B, Mii. So if black captures, white can capture. And these two still seem to be in danger. And if white or if black does this, of course that's terrible also. So that was an important sacrifice. Now this move is interesting. It looks really natural, but when black descends here, he actually gets a perfect shape, right? Two stones, a two-stone wall extend 3 spaces. So even though, actually let's just look a little more. White's got to help his stones a bit. So this is the eventual result. Actually, one more exchange here. So this is the result. Now, if we look, we could say that white completely split the corner, and it's gone. But the thing is, black actually got really nice results on both sides. So he gained territory while destroying territory on top. Yeah, that was what the pro thought too, Vincent. And he also got a nice um, result on the right-hand side. So white hasn't really gained much here. And so actually, Shusai made a comment on this, I guess. And he said that, actually, maybe I'll leave it to you guys. So when white connects at A, black descends at B and gets a good result. So where should white think about playing? Black is an amateur, and he was actually a samurai. We kind of talked about his backstory in the like the last 2 lectures. Yeah, he was a swordsman. He was a samurai, and he was an amateur player. He's argued to be like the strongest amateur in history, possibly. Yeah, he actually. This is just for Vincent's sake. He kind of wasn't an amateur because he got to the point where he was a one dan professional, and he even got a certificate. But then he started hearing word that he was ignoring his duties as a samurai because he was playing too much Go. And so he kind of had to quit Go for like, I forget, like 5 or 10 years or something like that. Um, and he did all this samurai stuff instead. Oh, 12? Was it 12 years? So in a sense, he was a pro, but he ended up being an amateur. Then after he like mastered the sword, the bow, the spear, horsemanship, and all that, he went back to play Go, and he actually played with Joa and the whole Honimbo school, and he played as a 5 dan, but Joa wouldn't give him a 5 dan certificate because there was no precedent in history for just like instantly making someone a 5 dan from nothing. Um, and Joa offered him. He said, "Well, I'll give you a 3 dan. How about that?" But Sekiyama was too proud to take a 3 dan certificate when he knew he was at least 5 dan of strength, so he just declined. So that's the story. All right. So yeah, someone FC pointed out that if B is such a good move for black, white should think about playing there. So this is the move that Shusai suggested. Um, and this is a very common reading trick, right? If you calculate, okay, I play here, then my opponent responds here. Okay, well, that result seems good for him. What if I play there first? That's like one of the foundations of solid reading. So in this case, there's a couple variations. Now the pro is just guessing Shusai's intention here, but he showed a couple variations. and this is one of them. Now these two stones are dead, but white can get some forcing moves. So he thinks this was probably the goal. Use these as kind of like backup stones and then take the nice extension at R9 and put some pressure on the A stone. The other variation that could happen would be if black backs off, then white could also back off or could connect, and this would be an improvement on the game. Pushing once more. Um, do you mean Atari? One more? Yeah, FC's probably right. Later on, black might or white might decide he wants this move instead. It's hard to say. Okay, so all right, so now we're back to the real game. One minor note here. In this type of situation, there's always two choices, right? Connecting solidly with A or making the capture. In this case, solid seems to be better, um, but it's good to understand the trade-offs. So if black captures, the downside is that it gives white this Atari, which can be potentially painful later. Now, of course, the upside is that the stone's actually gone. So like there's no liberty pressure around M18. For example, in this position, the K18 stone is still on the board, so that means that the A stone or the A move is going to be Sente, right? Now, in this particular position, the four stones are already really solid, right? So black isn't really scared about that. So that's why he can just do J17. However, looking at this a little bit deeper and thinking ahead, black potentially might want to come out around the A area, right? He might want to try and split this white area apart. And during that sort of exchange, the liberties on the B stones inevitably become tight, right? So in that sort of situation, then this CRG is going to become very useful. So um, one way to interpret this connection is that black isn't all that interested in coming out of the A area. So that's just something to think about. Okay, let's see what's next. Can anyone identify a piece of unfinished business for white? Yeah, for white. Good. Yeah, you got it. FC's got it. Um, remember black played here, which is a pseudo sente kind of move. Normally white needs to respond to that, but he didn't. So that's what he's going to come back and do now. Um, now this might look really slow or slack, but it's not. For a couple of reasons. First of all, this is the most solid move around this area, so it makes it harder for black to do anything. Um, and lag. The second thing is that white is making his group on the bottom solid because he's actually preparing to invade, possibly invade, I should say, on the left-hand side. So in a way, this is actually not severe, but aggressive in the sense that he's making himself really solid. He's poised to, do something crazy next. And that type of move is actually, you shouldn't underestimate it. Let's see an example, actually. I'm probably going to fail at making a good example. We've actually seen some real games where Shusaku makes this sort of play that I'm going to show, but let's just see here. Now, given that I'm the one making this example, it's probably not going to end up being particularly awesome, but let's see. I just want to give the general idea because that it is a shape that happens from time to time. One thing I can say is that this lag is forcing me to go at a reasonable pace rather than sprinting through sequences that I probably shouldn't. I wonder, are you guys, is the audio okay while I'm lagging, or I wonder if the audio has problems too. Yeah, this example is probably, it's definitely not as good as I was hoping it would be. But let me just add some stones here. So of course this is a fake example, but in this sort of position for black, this is a really good move, right? This big white extension, and at the same time aiming at A and putting pressure on this whole group. So if this were white to play, which it's not because I kind of failed the example. Actually, maybe I can just do it like this. So for white, this is actually a really good move. It's just solid, right? And now there's no good move that black can play nearby. So I understand that it probably looks really questionable if you're used to the idea of just trying to play fast, fast, fast. But it's the best move to get rid of all of the aji. Sometimes there's this one too, but don't underestimate this move. If there's nothing else really big on the board and you're just trying to get rid of the forcing moves, it's a really good option. Okay, so let's get back to the game. Okay, so that it's similar to what Shusaku played here. All right. And now black decides his weakest group on the board is this one over here. Is it? Okay, thanks, Yoyama. I'm actually having some lag when I'm playing through, so I think maybe the quality is stressing my upload. There is, okay, darn. So for now, black extends on the fourth line, which is interesting. If it were me, I would probably play on the third line. So when I see something like that, like this, I have to try and figure out why is he doing that. And I think the reason is that there's still cuts in the center, right? So these three stones can potentially be a real target for black, especially if you think that maybe A, B sort of exchanges could be sente. So he plays high. The other thing is that perhaps he thinks that his follow-up move will be better, right? This is something that Mr. Yang stresses. Like here, your follow-up move is going to be not so interesting. But here, if you can come down to A later, it's a bit more interesting. Okay, so I think this is where Shusaku really goes for it. This is pretty interesting. He turns here, and he's trying to see what he can do with this aji, and black kind of goes all out. He plays from the outside. Um, and the meaning of this move is that black is trying to swallow white's move without giving him any sort of compensation. And now if that were to happen, that would mean that white just wasted a move, right? That would be like Shusaku just put a dead stone in black's area for no reason. So that's impossible for him to allow. So he really needs to try and use this aji now. And he starts from here. Interesting move, right? And this goes back to what we were looking at earlier. Let's see if I can find it. Remember when we were talking about the variations here and the difference in the amount of thickness. Now, if Shusaku had done this one, he wouldn't have that sort of Aji anymore. Do you see the difference now? Um, so this one is a bit more thick. By the way, one thing I forgot to point out here, white can Hane here, and there is some Aji, but it's not a super big deal, right? It's something white can aim at, but it's not something that's super easy to use. So anyway, he plays here, and now this gets really interesting because black plays the super fighting move. He extends here, again, just trying to take everything, right? So white essentially has to live now because this exchange already hurts white's corner really badly. By the way, the pro said this was the only move. If black Hane's here, apparently this is already good enough for white because black's area got smaller. There's a cut that he probably has to fix. So that would be good enough. And also, if it wasn't, there's some double Hane nonsense here, right? And so not exactly sure what's going to happen here. Let me see who's calling me. Okay, no worries. All right, so he plays here. And now we have to see how we can use this Aji. For now, white attaches, so he's trying to get forcing moves, right? White Hanes, black crosscuts to get more forcing moves. This looks pretty desperate, right? Difficult. So let's see what he can do. Black captures the stone. White gets a forcing move. Black connects. Here's another forcing move. Atari is forcing. At this point, I almost broke the tree just out of reflex. You would think white or black would capture at A, but he doesn't. He attacks from this direction. And the reason for that is that if black captures like this, white can Hane, and it's actually not very difficult to get eye shape like this. And the pro said that white might actually be able to steal the offensive from black here. Because if you look at this whole group for black, it actually could end up being quite cumbersome. Okay, so he plays like this instead. Of course, that lets white actually capture the stone. Now the Aji of A is becoming very, very real because black can't capture the B10 stone anymore. So he fixes up, and it also gives him a move for later, right? Now, of course, there's no way white can connect there at the triangle. That would be ridiculous because it doesn't help his eyes at all. He needs to get some eye shape as fast as possible. So he goes for some eye space along the side. Black cuts that off. He makes B9 is now real, but black doesn't allow A8 to become a real eye. White gets the Atari and gets this. It's actually starting to look like white's going to live, right? Black keeps this from becoming an eye by cutting. That's kind of a nice move because he's captured 3 stones. He's also connected his group up, and he's stopping the eye. So that's a really positive move for black. but white gets to continue. Just f7 now. Yeah, f7. And he extends. So it's starting to look hard to kill white. He's got one eye. This is a half eye, right? Because if we connect at d9, then that's an eye. And this is a half eye. So what else is going on here? The other thing is that f6 kind of peeps at a, right? Like black could get cut off. So actually what he does for now is he just protects the corner because he realizes that it's not reasonable to try and kill white anymore. Let's see why that is. He could start with this. Yeah, Ruckus is good at finding the severe moves. So this is the most severe move because now if white connects at A, B would still make it a fake eye, right? You see that? And it also makes this one fake. So this would be the way for white to try and continue. White could wedge. Black backs off. White connects. Now this is just going to be a real eye, right? So if you really want to kill, you have to capture. Now white will play here. And this isn't exactly connected, but take a look at the A group. I think the A group will die faster than white's group. For example, if you really try to cut. White is short liberties, but it seems like black is even shorter. At worst, this would be Seki, right? If both sides have an eye. So you can't really kill white anymore. So that's why he just takes the corner. What if black just c3? That's what he does in the game. Did you mean in that sequence somewhere? In that position. Oh, like here. Oh, interesting. Because there's two places to cut, you're saying, right? F5. Oh, the three stones. Yeah, I think you're gonna have trouble with the three stones. Interesting. This would be a really painful cut to play, I have to say. Even if this killed the group, like even if this kills the white group, I still feel awful cutting like this. But yeah, it seems like there's going to be some serious issues. Okay, that's a good question though. Okay, so where's the real game? So this is the real game. So that gives white a chance to defend himself a bit here. And these stones, actually, there is a fair amount of pressure on these stones here. Like white could cut them off with A. So that's why the pro said that this move is actually quite aggressive, this turn here for black. Now his idea apparently, let me click white's move first. His idea apparently is that if white tries to come through here, he will probably sacrifice these. He can play here first, which is forcing. I'll explain why in a second. And then he'll cut here. See how A is helping out with this? So his idea would be to possibly give up these three, but get a really nice attack in the center. So it's a really nice spirit, right? Especially when you're playing against someone of Shusaku's caliber. So why is this Sente? The reason for that is if you just look at this move, it's kind of stupid, but it's powerful, right? But in this case, white could run away. But when black plays here first, now it would just work, right? Nowhere to go. And that's also the reason white plays here. If you remember in the diagram I just showed, these four stones get attacked. So one way to defend, actually a really great way, is here, because now if white cut or if black cuts at A, we have another home to go to, right? And we're also helping the other group. So this is a really nice defense. Okay, let's see what is next. Right. Okay, so like I mentioned, these stones are going to get cut off, right? And now the problem is becoming even more pronounced. So black goes to fix that now. And this is still a really nice way to do it. Makes a good table sort of shape and also pokes at white. And this is a little interesting. White plays like this for now because he needs Sente. Notice how this exchange, white was able to fix his problem and keep Sente because black can't play in anyway. But this actually leaves black some Aji, which is important. This might be a little confusing, but I'm going to try and explain it. Let's see how to put this. So if black just connects like this, later on, if black tries to do something like this, white will probably just force and then connect. And it's not a really big deal. But in this case, white is not going to do that because that gives up Sente, right? So white has to do it like this. But what's so special about this is that now black can do A, B, C and capture the E5 stone. And that's a few points, and it's also an I, right? That's the most important thing. So let me click white's actual move first, which is here. But locally, white could actually attack this group, right? Because it is possible to play a double Hane here, right? So now that is Ko, for anyone that's wondering. This would be Ko. But locally, just within this space here, black doesn't have enough room for two eyes, right? So the idea is that he can get his other eye like this. So that's pretty smart, right? The way he did that. He realizes his group has a potential weakness, and the way he used his forcing moves gave him a really nice way to handle it. Okay, so white plays here. Oh, also, I guess we should point out that white completely destroyed the left, right? I mean, it's fairly obvious. But actually, black is still ahead because he got the lower left corner, and he has something else good that's coming, which is this attack, right? Because he got all those moves. So now white has to worry about this group a little bit. So even though white lived on the left, black is still has a decent game going. White Hanes. Then he forces from here. No, we're still good. Don't worry. This is a nice forcing move because white could connect under, right? Black defends, and then white says, okay, I better live. And let's see. Now he uses his forcing moves. T19. Now you're trying to trick me. So he does this in Sente, and then he pushes here. He actually uses his forcing moves really well here also. I thought it was pretty instructive. This cut is a very interesting move, asking a question to white. A or B? And white answers here. And so why is that? This looks fine, right? What's the problem with this? Does anyone know? Nice, FC. FC has had some really good comments today. Yeah, so a lot of you are seeing A, which is true, but I think, yeah, so that is the actual Aji, but FC was the only one that really pointed out you have to look a bit deeper. Yeah, because it doesn't work immediately, right? This doesn't really work. But the point is, white won't be able to cut from here. Yeah, I guess Ruckus sort of said it. Right? So, for example, because white would really love to attack these stones, right? Doesn't that look like a good possibility? But you can't because that just lost a liberty. And now this does work, right? So when white connects here, yeah, you get points. You can give them to yourself, Nimbim. White is trying to keep the liberties strong here so that he can still cut with A, B, C. So he's keeping pressure on these three stones. I'll have to think about that. I'm not sure. And that gives black additional nice follow-up moves here, because this is totally Sente. Now, of course, white is alive now, but black got to force in the corner and from the outside. And he gets to come back and fix here, which is also very nice. Now white makes the probe here. It says, how are you going to connect? Are you going to connect at A? Are you going to connect at B? Black says, neither. I'm going to do it like this, right? Threatening to cut your big group off again. So white has to answer. And then black says, oh, well, I'll just make the table shape for now. I can connect at A later if I need to, right? It's basically a Yosei move. And doing something around B or maybe C or connecting A, they're pretty comparable in terms of points. So that's completely fine. So he does that. Then white peeps rather, and decides he can make a decent little box-like area for himself here. M6 instead of table. M6. It serves a similar purpose. The only difference is that this is Sente for white now. But it might do a little better job of reducing the A area. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's definitely something to consider, I would say. Okay, so white gets this. Black makes this Hane. Second line Hanes are enormous in endgame, right? Just absolutely huge. Black protects the corner, or white protects the corner rather, otherwise black can slide in there. Black gets the clamp. That's a little annoying. And then he gets to connect here, which is also big. Black plus Yosei. White also does the Hane and connect. And black jumps here. And then white does the same thing back. Oh no! I broke the tree. Good game. White actually Atari's here first in Sente. And then he does this same clamp. It did, huh? Only to get cut down right at the end. Okay, let's see. Black gets a forcing move here. This is actually Sente, right? Because of A. Because this one is Sente, right? So do that first, and then play here. And it's only one eye. So white has to answer. And black gets this one too. White Hanes, and black backs off. So what does this tell you when black backs off like this? It means yeah, those are all reasonable. The other thing it means is that he doesn't need to. It means he's confident of his win, um, because there's no reason to do the ko, right? Because he's just winning. Yeah, so this would be the ko, of course. So you always got to be careful about that. So he just backs off because he's confident that he's ahead. Then he gets this. And finally, he closes up here, and Shusaku resigns at this point. So it's pretty good for Sekiyama, because he lost the first two, right? If he lost this one, it would probably start to seem a little hopeless. Um, but indeed, Sekiyama won this game, the third game. I think that's really cool. He actually made a comment on it. He said, he said, Black played well. This is a game I would not be ashamed to show to anyone. So good for him. At which point did Shusaku fall behind? So I guess let's do a recap. I actually don't normally do that. Maybe I should. I can show you the moves that the pro kind of called out. The first one was this one. This made the game easy for Black. Even though this move locally, it's very good. The 8 Dan felt like White needs to play here first, because when Black pressed here, it made the game too easy. Okay, let's see what else. Here, Black got a good result again, and that's why Shusai suggested that maybe White needs to play here instead. So even though the corner got broken, Black got a nice result. So the game is probably already a little difficult for White because you have to remember there's no Komi, right? And so White's trying to catch up from the beginning, and he's already had maybe one or two slight slips. We're talking about like probably 2 to 3 points at most on each of these, right? But if you can't catch up, you can't catch up. And then here he was forced to live, which he was able to, which is quite impressive, but still he didn't really gain. It's interesting when at such a high level, it's hard to see any major mistakes, right? But it can be the smallest things. So just one or two small things, especially that one in the Fuseki, I guess, at L17, and Black just played a good enough game that White never had a chance to catch up. Who's Gino? Oh, I see. All right, well, that was cool. Congratulations to Sekiyama. I think that's really cool to be an amateur and to be able to take a game off of Shusaku. Um, I'm gonna I'm gonna have to see what actually happened with the video and what the quality of it is. Hopefully it's good enough to post. I really don't feel like doing this game again offline. But I'm gonna try and tweak it to make sure there's no lag, assuming that the lag wasn't a coincidence. Other than that, let me say a few things. The next Shusaku review is not going to be next week because we're going to have the game with Mr. Yang, the 7 Dan professional. I haven't talked to him yet about what the topic is going to be, but I don't think I need to do a lecture also if we're going to have his. So got depressed for like 2 seconds, then got really happy because you're getting something way better. Yeah, so the time is in the room, so just take a look at that. It's 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, but you can look in your own time zone. But the next one, so I'll do my next lecture the weekend after that, and it's another game against Sekiyama. But it looks like it skips ahead to game 19 out of the 20 game series. And let's see here. Oh, this one has a lot more commentary. Oh, Miyamoto commented it, no wonder. So that one might be a little more in depth, maybe a little more interesting. All right, so yeah, show up for the pro lecture. I don't know how many of you are here for the last one, so I'll just reiterate that you can record for yourself, but we can't upload it to the internet. So that means if you're not there for the lecture, you're pretty much going to be out of luck. So show up if you're interested in it. Um, because otherwise it would be free for everyone, right, Moboy? It's the same thing when I do my lessons with him, my one-on-one lessons. I have to pay, right? And if I just upload those, I actually asked him, by the way, this is how I know. He's If I upload it, then everyone just gets that lesson for free, right? Um, so unfortunately, we can't upload it online, but you can record it for your own purposes. Just don't, distribute it. But you're gonna have to be there if you want to participate. So do that. All right. Thanks, everyone. And I'll see you, I guess, in like 2 weeks.